Hashimoto'sHealing.com.
Hey people, I'm Mark Ryan, licensed acupuncturist and herbalist from Hashimoto'sHealing.com. Has this ever happened to you? Do you forget appointments, lose your keys like all the time, several times a day? Or do you forget the names of people or pets you know, like names you shouldn't forget? I was speaking with a man with Hashimoto's last week, and he was concerned because he had recently forgotten the name of his 13-year-old dog. He's had this dog its entire life, for 13 years, and he forgot his name. Or about this, do you ever have problems concentrating or find that certain mental activities just exhaust you? Is it affecting you at work? Do you worry about keeping your job? I was speaking with another woman the other day, she also has Hashimoto's, and she told me, I feel like there's a smart person inside me who can't get out. That describes it perfectly. All of these things are symptoms of something going on with your brain. And this is directly caused by Hashimoto's. This is not coincidence. This is an area that I'm really, really passionate about. And the reason is that this is an area that almost no one talks about or does anything about. And I'm totally baffled by this. To me, this is arguably one of the most important things to treat. If you lose your brain, everything else is gone. Forget about having any decent quality of life. You are done. Right? Something that most people don't realize is that many of the most common symptoms of Hashimoto's are brain related. Right? Some of these things are like brain fog and memory loss. Others less so, like depression, neurological disorders. Things can look a lot like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. And regardless of how obvious they are, all of these brain-related symptoms are a sign of degeneration of the brain. No bueno. Okay, so let's take a look at this. In adults, thyroid hormone has been shown to have a major influence on virtually every brain activity. T3 and T4 are involved in the formation of neurons, neural migration, axonal and dendritic growth. These are different kinds of nerve fibers, myelination, other things. They're responsible for the growth and activity of nerves, and that's what the brain's made of. Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism can lead to various disorders, including lethargy, slow reflexes, poor motor coordination. It's also been linked to bipolar disorders, depression, loss of cognitive function, especially in the elderly. And in the most extreme cases, Hashimoto's has been shown in a condition called Hashimoto's encephalopathy, which causes severe changes in the brain that look very much like the destruction that Alzheimer's causes. Look, here's a picture of an MRI with someone with Hashimoto's encephalopathy. You see all that white stuff? That's plaque. That replaces brain tissue, and it does not work at all. It's like having pudding in your head instead of a brain. Not good. The brain actually loses massive amounts of brain tissue with Hashimoto's encephalopathy. And thyroid hormone has a very powerful effect on the brain. And hypothyroidism and brain inflammation can cause very serious and lasting damage to the brain. One of the most common symptoms we've all heard of with Hashimoto's is brain fog. It's that feeling like we were just talking about. Like you can't quite focus or concentrate no matter how hard you try, right? The smart person can't get out. Well, brain fog is actually an indication of inflammation in your brain. Immune cells in the brain called microglia are responsible for this. These are the cells responsible for causing Alzheimer's, for Parkinson's, cardiovascular disease, and lots more things. And these cells also respond quickly to pathogens and injury, and they accumulate in places where there's degeneration. And they produce a whole variety of pro-inflammatory molecules. That's right, they cause inflammation. Well, thyroid hormone has a major influence on them. It can keep them calm and it can modulate them. This is why some people with Hashimoto's notice that their brain fog really improves when they're given thyroid hormone. But for many others, this doesn't help at all. And if this is the case, then there's something else driving this inflammation and this immune attack. Another common symptom for people with Hashimoto's is fatigue. And in many cases, this is also being caused by the same brain inflammation. So if you have fatigue when you read, when you drive, when you have long conversations, this is brain-based fatigue. And you can't get brain endurance back unless you support your brain. At this point, it's not simply a thyroid hormone problem anymore. And the thing to realize is this is inflammation. And all that fatigue may be caused by an autoimmune response. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of the usual suspects that cause this. One is gluten, the other is leaky gut. Together, they equal leaky brain and brain inflammation. A protein found in connection with gluten consumption called zonulin is linked to leaky gut. That's intestinal permeability. the very thing that commonly leads to antibody reactions to foods, which leads to sensitivities and allergies, and even eventually to things like Hashimoto's. There's a direct link between the inflammation in the gut, the result of these compounds getting into the bloodstream and into the brain, and brain degeneration, the breakdown of brain cells. And if you have leaky gut, you may also have leaky brain. These same proteins are found in the blood-brain barrier. They sometimes also break down in the brain. In order to improve this brain fog, you have to reduce brain inflammation and heal the barrier systems. Because when things enter the brain that shouldn't, the microglia respond, and if that response is severe, the tissue around it can be collateral damage. The microglia cells also make up the blood-brain barrier. This is a thin barrier that lines the brain and allows only tiny necessary substances to pass through. Well, the blood-brain barrier is important for keeping the bad guys out. Things like bacteria and viruses, environmental toxins. But unfortunately, according to Dr. Tis Karazian, the author of the new book, Why Isn't My Brain Working?, the blood-brain barrier develops these leaks for many different reasons. And some of these include blood sugar problems, particularly of insulin resistance, chronic stress, chronic inflammation, poor gut health, poor diet with unhealthy fats, and out-of-control autoimmunity. The Hashimoto's is just not being managed. An autoimmune attack on parts of the brain has also been noted with Hashimoto's patients. One part of the brain that's been observed to be vulnerable is the cerebellum. As it turns out, research has also shown that gluten can lead to destruction of the cerebellum. Coincidence? You decide. Okay, we just talked about the immune system in the brain. Well, one thing that's important to understand is that it has no off switch. If there's an immune response in the brain, there is nothing to call off the attack. And the microglial cells create brain inflammation and chew up brain tissue in the process. Another area that Hashimoto's has a real profound effect in is also the neurotransmitters. Hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's can lead to deficiencies in important neurotransmitters. And this is a really big effect on how you feel, how you think, and what's going on with you emotionally. These are really the molecules of emotion, as researcher and scientist Candace Pert discovered the opiate receptor in the brain, called them in her book of the same name. There are many, but the ones that we're going to look at here are serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and GABA. A neurotransmitter is a compound released from a nerve terminal. When an electrical impulse travels to the end of the nerve, it stimulates the terminal of the cell to secrete a chemical signaling molecule at a special place between nerve cells called the synapse. What happens with these signaling chemicals is that they make us feel stuff. And with hypothyroidism, we can easily become deficient in them. This is what makes your emotions go all over the map. The most commonly prescribed drugs for hypothyroid patients, besides thyroid replacement hormone, are antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And the reason these people are feeling this way is because of this connection between thyroid hormone and these neurotransmitters. Okay, so let's take a look at serotonin first. Too little serotonin can make you feel sadness, rage, loss of enjoyment in things, like you feel like giving up. Serotonin is also used as a messenger to release TSH, and it modulates the production of T3 inside cells, and it actually may influence the rate of T3 conversion. And it works the other way too. Thyroid hormone has a direct effect on the amount of serotonin that's in your body. And if you have too little thyroid hormone, it slows the synthesis of serotonin. One reason a lot of people with functional hypothyroidism will get depressed is because of this problem with serotonin. Next thing I want to look at is dopamine. Too little dopamine can make you feel self-destructive thoughts, isolation, anger, irritability. It's the reward and pleasure molecule. Well, too little dopamine makes you feel like, why bother? There's no reward. Thyroid hormone plays an important role in the release of dopamine. And studies have shown that reduced dopamine can actually raise TSH. Yet another reason why this test is sometimes not reliable for checking on how your thyroid's doing. Next one is acetylcholine. This is a really important neurotransmitter for brain activity. It's responsible for nerve firing. Too little acetylcholine can cause memory issues, slow recall, difficulty calculating, trouble with math, focus. If you're having trouble paying attention, it could be too little acetylcholine. And when you're hypothyroid, your brain uses acetylcholine to make up for insufficient amounts of thyroid hormone. It's like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, right? And T3 has also been shown to stimulate acetylcholine. Next one's GABA. GABA stands for gamma aminobutyric acid. And too little GABA can make you feel anxiety, panic, and restlessness. It's a calming neurotransmitter. So too little makes you really uptight, and not in a good way. It also affects TSH release in the pituitary. It affects how much TSH is released. And it also affects thyroid hormone that are stimulated by TSH, like T4. And thyroid hormones keep GABA in your system after it is released and make more of it. Again, it all goes both ways, right? You're not crazy. It's the impact of hypothyroidism on your brain and these neurotransmitters. And if you have too little serotonin, that will impact your ability to bounce back. Too little dopamine is going to impact your outlook and your enjoyment of things. Too little acetylcholine means you can't concentrate and focus on tasks and finishing them. Making changes requires focus. And too little GABA will make you unable to handle stressors. You may freak out on a regular basis over trivial things. So we have to look at all these things, not pretend this isn't happening. It is happening all the time. And all of these neurotransmitters can be nourished. You can take the raw materials for them and help your body produce more of them when they're deficient. And one of the things I frequently discuss in my teaching and in my consultations is that Hashimoto's is a multi-system disorder. Right? It's not just a thyroid problem or just an immune system problem. It extends into all the major systems of your body, including your liver, the adrenals, the pancreas, the stomach, the digestive tract, and as we've seen here, the brain. And this is often why people don't get better. Their doctors ignore all these other systems and these things that are breaking down, and they just keep increasing the dosage of thyroid hormone. Well, a lot of times that just doesn't work. You need to have a multi-system strategy. And that's what I'm offering here. A strategy for first determining where these problems are. We've seen a lot of problem areas here. And then a program that's designed to fix them. In the next video, I'm going to show you how this multi-system approach works, and you'll discover some great strategies for healing and saving your brain. I'm Mark Ryan, licensed acupuncturist and herbalist from Hashimoto's Healing.com.
Hope, help, and healing. With a hint of humor, Hashimoto's Healing.com.